So, hey there, I'm with Amy. Amy's a qualified person-centered counselor. Amy, you've done a lot more than being a person-centered counselor, but I just wanted to start off the conversation by asking you how you define a person-centered counselor and what that means to you.
How I define a person centered counselor. Wow. Okay. So basically, I mean, it's kind of in the title, really. A person centered counselor is someone that works with people, obviously, and it's very much centered around the person. So the counselor doesn't have any agenda. So any clients that I see, I don't have an agenda as to what I'm looking to achieve, what pathways I want to go down. It's very much led by them. It's their counselling and it runs how they want it to. So, in that way, it's person centered. And in our training that we are basically trained to allow them to find their own answers. So the questioning that we use is probably different, and it's more client led. So they might say something, and I'll want to respond with, naturally as a person, I want to respond with a certain question, but I'll rephrase it in order to be able to get them to think about, so what do you think the solution is? Kind of things like that, kind of just twisting it back to them to kind of help them find the answers within themselves, because we do believe, as person-centered counsellors, that everyone has the answers inside them to all of the questions that we have, that we have the resource inside. Because we don't want them to be in counselling forever. Oh no, I've got a problem, I must go and see a counsellor to get it sorted out. We want them to draw on their own resources and to trust those resources to be able to find the answers. And if we can equip them with that, then that's all good, and they can help themselves.
That's a beautiful philosophy. I love that the resources are within you and that you can discover them. I'm assuming one of the ways you help people discover these inner resources is through journaling, how do you help people discover their inner resources when you're talking about trauma in the past, that stuff that's already happened in the past?
Well, it's really interesting because every single person is different. So you could have two people experience the same kind of trauma, but they will have completely different experiences. And so it's very subjective. But, like you said, journaling is a great way. But it all depends on what their resources are that they've been using already. So what their frames of references are, how they look externally, how they look internally. Do they ever look internally for answers, or are they looking externally? Are they asking people for opinions and answers and all the rest of it to find the answers? So first of all, it's about getting them to become aware. So the first things that we do, I guess basically I do, is to get them to become aware. Awareness is key. And so to ask themselves questions. I feel uncomfortable in this situation, but I don't know why. What's going on? Why do I feel uncomfortable? Kind of, if they can ask themselves in the moment, fantastic, but usually it's in hindsight. It's like, oh damn, this happened today and I was supposed to think, what was I thinking and feeling, but I'm not looking until now, and that's okay. So it's about looking, what am I feeling? Why am I feeling it? What's going on with me? Which is not something that we normally do. Journaling is a fantastic resource. If people can't afford therapy, journaling is a fantastic second base, because it allows all of the stuff that's kind of going on in the head to come down on paper, and it gets it out of you. It's the same way as talking. Talking gets it out of you, writing gets it out of you, which affords you some clarity in here to be able to go, right, I see what's going on now. You've got a bit of distance from it. And one of the other things that I do is, particularly with trauma and historical trauma, is inner child work. I love to do inner child work. That is really profound. Every time I've done it, it's been profound. So we do that, and there's a specific technique that I could tell you about that I use if you want me to.
Yeah, it's fascinating too. Do some of the present moment awareness, does that come into play when you're dealing with inner child work as well?
That's an interesting question. So, yes, because the two kind of mirror. What happens is people go through experiences. So let's say a person has trauma from their mother, okay? Then what will happen is they have that relationship with, with themselves and their mother. And then they will recreate later on in life other relationships where they are trying to repeat that pattern that they had with their mother in order to kind of fix it. If they can make this one right and good, then they can make that one right and good. You kind of make sense of the last one. So by doing the inner child work, we're kind of going into the past and talking with the inner child, almost like it's a separate person, but it's very much tied intrinsically to the present because of the patterns that they're creating in their lives. So even while we're doing the inner child work, I might stop them and say, what are you feeling right now? Where are you right now? And if it resonates with the situation that we've talked about, then, they will be able to say, yeah, I'm doing exactly the same thing now.
Yeah, it's crazy how powerfully our behaviors and patterns and relationships, the standard and model, it gets like imprinted, almost like a duck, when the mother duck and then the child duck just follows it around no matter what. And like, it just does it no matter what. And that's kind of how we are too, deep down. It's crazy thinking about actually having an inner child in you that you can talk to, at least if this is the first time you've ever heard of it. Right? That it's just like we can talk to our inner selves, and somehow this talking to your inner self helps heal your current problems. It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
It's fantastic. I mean, if you think about the movie Big with Tom Hanks, yeah. So he's there, and he's a kid essentially in a grown-up world, and it gets to the point in the film where someone says to him, "Why don't you just grow up?" And he realizes, can't be a kid anymore, got to be a grown-up. I'm in a grown-up world. His best friend comes along and says, "Where have you gone? You suck now, you've disappeared," kind of thing. And that's what we all do. We get to this stage in life where we realize we can't be a kid anymore. We've got to grow up. And whatever age we're at is where our child gets stunted, and then we start to live life, and that child loses their voice at that time. And then we go ahead and live this adult life that we think we're supposed to do, but we've binned a part of ourselves off.
Yeah. And it's so interesting how this is talking to yourself can change your biology in some ways, because many times if it's a longer term client and we're kind of exploring some of these issues in regards to foods, if it's a longer, if in the beginning, I don't really talk about this inner child work with food issues, but I specialize in food issues. And so later on, if they're going on board and we start talking about these things, it changes your body in many ways. It's so hard for me to fathom, but I'm also so appreciative of it too, that talking to your inner self and doing this narrative work, it's not just some storytelling that we tell ourselves. It's not just some little talking to a voice in your head. It is powerful work that changes how you respond to it. I'm always just flabbergasted that this inner child work can translate into real life behavior changes.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Because I mean, the work that I do, it's from a book that I read about in working with your inner child, and it's a whole guide in it, as to about how to do it. But before I did it with any of my clients, I did it with myself. And essentially what you do is you have a conversation you have dialogue conversation with the child. And so first of all, you use your non-dominant hand to draw a picture of your inner child. So that's the first task that you do. And there's a reason that you use your non-dominant hand. So for me, it would be my left hand because I'm right-handed. And so I draw a picture with my left hand. My left hand connects to a side of my brain where my child memories are. So it connects, that scientific connection kind of thing. And so you draw the child. And it's when you're doing it, it's ever so strange. And you have to do it to kind of realize just how weird it is, because it almost feels like you're possessed by, another person, because the left hand feels like it's got a mind of its own. And so when I drew my inner child, it had orange hair. I've never had orange hair in my life. And it drew me, it was a stick woman, a stick girl, and I was very, very long and thin. And I wasn't long and thin as a child, but it was representative of how I felt, And then the dialogue came, you write questions with your right hand. So you as an adult are writing the question, and you as a child write the answer with your other hand. So the very first question you ask is, what's your name? And sometimes it could be a nickname that comes forward, or just your regular name. For me, my name is Amy, but my full name is Amelia. But because of my journey, I had binned off Amelia at like 11 because I was beaten up, blackmailed and bullied at school. And I thought, I'm never going to be that girl again. Amelia is dead to me. So I cut her off, right, at age 11. And whenever anybody called me Amelia, I would be like, don't call me that. And then when I did inner child work, the hand wants to write Amelia. And I'm like, oh, no. So, it's so funny, the things that come forward. And then, of course, I had a journey then to come to terms with that child that I'd binned off, who had no fault in this. But interestingly enough, you say you work with food, is that I was a very sickly child. And through the inner child work, I discovered I was a very anxious child. And that led to me being a sickly child.
Interesting. You were, if you're stressed out, stress and sickness go together.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's so powerful too, that you were able to feel that fear coming up when you were writing out your full name. How does being called Amelia today now resonate with you instinctually?
So I'm a lot softened towards it now. Yeah. So if somebody could, I kind of take care of that name, because I feel like I'm taking care of that part of me, that kind of was in the past, but is still present now, and she deserves a break. She went through a rough time. Yeah. So for me to reject her, that's just awful.
Yeah. Is this an example of you doing person-centered therapy on yourself? Because it seems to me that this is a darn good example of drawing upon an inner resource. Like you softening is tapping into something.
Yeah.
What is that something that you're tapping into? I guess it's maybe the dialogue with the inner child and understanding how hard of a time she went through, but in your own words, what are you tapping into?
Well, it taps into all the emotions that you kind of bury. We all have experiences, like with the historical trauma, you bury those feelings because you think they're too big, they're going to kill you, consume you, overwhelm you. You won't be able to exist as a person with those feelings. And so with that work, you're tapping into those feelings, and it's no different, for me. I'm still a human being, even though I'm a counsellor, and so I'm on my own journey too. So yes, it's tapping into those feelings of, that rejection, that fear I felt as a child, and the anxiety, and, all of that you're kind of tapping into. And then it's about accepting it and loving that child, that felt all of those things, to allow her to come out of the other side of it so that she can be proud of who she is now, and give her a break for back then. So it's kind of a lot of love that comes forward for her, which is completely the opposite to what I was feeling before, which was complete rejection. I would reject her at the snap of a hat.
Yeah, absolutely. When we tap in and we allow those feelings to be there, that is that's loving ourselves. That is loving ourselves for sure. So important. You know,
And you know what?
we get disconnected from our true selves, you might say. And
Yeah.
this awareness of our true self when you're doing the left hand dominant, and then kind of tapping up those emotions, and then the healing that comes forth through that. It's an amazing and beautiful
Mm.
process. It's just, it's heartwarming.
Yeah. Yeah. That
Yeah.
absolutely is. And you know what else? It kind of causes you to trust yourself, because a lot of people don't trust themselves. They don't trust that they have the answers. They don't trust they have the right answers, and so they're busy looking at what everybody else is doing and how everybody else is coping. And everybody else, is likely to be winging it as well. So it creates that trust
That's so
that
true.
they do have that resource.
So building up this confidence, it seems to me that a lot of it comes through when these emotions well up. Anxiety, something powerful rises up, whether it's from your own, journaling and discovering the inner child, or just asking yourself questions therapy. These powerful emotions come up, and you said accepting. I feel like if you can accept a powerful emotion and get through it, and that will build that inner sense of trust. How do you handle anxious feelings or just really intense feelings? Because it's one thing to just say, "Oh, just accept how you feel," kind of in a dismissive way. I just accept it, just get through it. But I think you perhaps have a different understanding. What do you mean this word acceptance?
So I think acceptance is it's a journey to get to acceptance. If you look at the 5 stages of grief, you've got denial, bargaining, anger, depression, and acceptance. But you have to kind of go through all of those stages in order to get to the acceptance. You have to go into the dark to come out the other side into the light where the acceptance is. And people confuse acceptance with it's okay that this happened, when it's not okay that something's happened. And you're not saying that. You're saying that you can be okay despite what happened. And so it's again about being kind and compassionate to yourself, that you're able to kind of accept that you did the best that you could, and that it wasn't your fault, or that you can be different moving forward. And so it's an acceptance of all of the feelings, and I think they lead you to acceptance. It's okay to be angry, it's okay to be sad, and then once you allow yourself to feel those feelings and believe that you're strong enough to hold them, because we are, then you're able to get to that acceptance stage, which brings the relief and the release as well.
Yeah, it's okay to feel. That's the root of this thing. It's okay to feel. I think that's the
Yeah.
root, the core. It's okay to feel. Yeah.
I have so many people that say to me, it's too much, it's too big. And I liken it to a monster under the bed or a monster in the cupboard. The idea of the monster under the bed is terrifying. And when you think about it, you think, I can't do it, I'll die, because it feels that consuming. But then when you finally pluck up the courage and look under the bed, you either see that there's no monster there at all and it was all, nothing to be worried about, or you see that there is a monster under the bed and you can look it square in the eyes and say, okay, what have you got? Because it doesn't have anything. It just has the power of fear over you, of what you think that you will lose, or, because there's kind of a normality that is formed by living in trauma after effects, or, a normality that's formed, a new normal kind of thing. And people get used to that and they don't like thinking, well, how do I even live without this? And that's about acceptance as well, because if I go to acceptance, then it means that I'm not going to be in this space and I'm afraid of not being in this space. So it's a lot of coaching really about feeling all of those emotions along the way.
Yeah, and what they mean, and
Mm.
and all these different things. You talk on your website about ethics, how ethics have actually been a hugely important part of your life, and that I believe you had lost some jobs because of ethics. I assume it's you were standing up on the ethical side of things and not doing things the bad way.
Yeah.
What can you, that kind of sounded juicy to me. What can you share about that? Do you have any stories that highlight your value of ethics and how you stood up for your ethics in a hard situation?
Absolutely. So the job that I talk about losing, and had been a problem for a while with different jobs in the same field, I was working in employability. So basically, I was working for an agency where unemployed people would go to, and I would see them and say, right, we've got to get you a job, and help them apply for jobs and help build their CVs and all of that. But the problem is they came to me, and obviously I would have targets. So I'd have targets to get these people in a job. And if I didn't meet these targets, then I was in trouble. And so they would come to me and say, I haven't got a job. And I'd go, okay, why? Well, I'm an alcoholic. Right, okay. Or they'd say, oh, I'm homeless. And I'd think, oh, hang on a minute. These issues are more important than getting a job, And so my moral compass would be, I don't care about getting you a job. I need to get you some help. I need to get you a house, And so my focus would completely shift and my targets went out the window. And in the end, I did lose my job because I couldn't meet the targets because I cared too much about what they were actually going through. I remember one time there was a young lad that came to see me, and a lot of these people go through the system again and again, and they get fed up of being pushed around because they're human beings at the end of the day, And this lad, he came to see me and he sat next to my desk. And he was, he was 19, 20. And I think I was about 30 at the time. And he sat there and he looked at the floor and his leg was going up and down. His knee was like banging up and down like this. And I thought either he's agitated or he's nervous. There's something else going on here. And so instead of me going through the usual paperwork, I just put down my pen and I was like, what's going on? What's the matter? What are you feeling? And without even knowing it, I was kind of being counsellor then.
Yeah.
And then he looked at me and saw that I was actually interested in him as a person. But of course, the targets didn't want that. The company didn't want that. They wanted people pushing into jobs at whatever cost it was. There would be times where they wouldn't really be any financially better off by being in a job. Or if the job was temporary, you'd put them in this job, the benefits would stop, they'd go in the job for 6 weeks, the job would end, they'd have to reapply for benefits, and then they'd be out of money until the benefits came through. And it's just like, what are you doing?
Yeah. So that experience sounded like it motivated you to go into counseling.
No, I didn't go into counseling until much later. The funny thing, I went on a counselling weekend course. I think it was an introduction to counselling, and I was in my mid-20s, I think, and so I did this course, and I was like, I am never going to be a counsellor. That's awful.
Wait, you had the opposite impression in the beginning.
Yeah.
What was the course about that made you not want to be a counselor?
It was the emotions, it was the emotions that people would come forward with and they'd start crying and I wouldn't know what to do. And of course, in a weekend course, you're not going to learn much of how to, be trained as a counsellor. And so it was just, I thought, I don't want to be dealing with people crying. Forget that.
And so you eventually got into counseling. How did that happen? How did that 180 degrees occur?
Yeah, so complete change happened. I was really interested in psychology and why people acted the way that they do. Really interested in body language. I would get books on it and, study about body language and understand why people act the way they do, because I thought there's a reason. If some woman's flipping out in the supermarket about something, there's a reason for that. And I was intrigued by it. So initially, I went to an open evening at a college to look about being qualified as a psychologist. That's the route that I was going to go. But because I'd been out of education for quite a while, obviously I was 40 something, I needed to do a 2-year course first that was going to cost me about £1,000. And then I would have to do a 6-year degree, because I'd have to do it part-time while working. And I thought, it's going to be 8 years, and I'm not even going to be qualified then. I'm still going to have to do another qualification on top of that before I can practice. And I thought, that is just too long, and so I thought, okay, I need a rethink here. And that's when I went into counselling instead.
Got you. You were kind of driven in there by curiosity to figure out people, and interesting.
Yeah, and it's fantastic. I feel it's such a privilege to be a counsellor, because, people are afraid that you're going to judge them. And, I think I did a YouTube video ages ago. You could say to me, I want to go and live on the moon. And I would take you completely seriously and say, okay, let's explore why you want to live on the moon. Because the thing is, people aren't used to being able to speak completely openly and say, I feel this way without being judged. And so for them to be able to speak freely and to trust me with that, that's a massive privilege. And so for me to be able to hold their stuff with them, it's just gold.
Yeah.
This is why I do.
I like counseling too. It's because this thing of non-judgment, this non-judgment thing, I think the more I get into this thing, the more I'm kind of realizing and appreciating, and judgment is like the root of all evil. Like whether you're mindful or you're trying to build up more compassion or more love, like this thing, judgment, because judgment is what starts the rejection. And as a counselor too, I feel like I get to practice the most valuable skill of learning how to not judge.
Yeah. It completely
changed. Not judge another person in front of you. Because it's not like, oh, I just graduated with my counseling degree. Let me put on my counseling glasses and see you without judgment. It's a purification process as well on my end, and doing my own work and seeing how my inner child projects out in the world, and that these projections aren't real. And
I love the word that you used there, purification, because it really is. I mean, my training, it included me obviously going to therapy myself, and I still have my own therapy now, to kind of work through things, because even though I know all the answers, when you're too close, you just can't see the answers.
Yeah.
But it changes you as a person. It really does change you. It changed me.
Yeah, me too. I still see a therapist as well, and I don't know if I'll ever stop. I mean,
yeah, I love it.
Yeah, I love it. Well, this feels like a good spot to kind of wrap things up, at least for this first conversation. But I really wanted to thank you. I always relearn and re-appreciate certain things. And so I just wanted to ask you real quick before you left, how can people contact you? You're in the UK. Where can people contact you? Tell me more about like your professional life and all this stuff. If someone is interested in reaching out, where can they contact you?
Okay, so I've got a website, www.treeoflifecounselling.co.uk. And I'm on Twitter as well, Tree of Life Counselling as well. And I'm on Facebook as well. So there's lots of different social media platforms I'm on LinkedIn as well. And so a message can get through to me through the website as a messaging platform there. And so I work 4 days a week. I work Monday to Thursday. And I do Skype counselling, telephone counselling, and face-to-face counselling. And I do marriage counselling, couples counselling, that kind of thing as well. So I'm pretty busy, which is good. But people are welcome to reach out.
Great. Okay, Amy, thank you so much for coming on.
You're very welcome. Thanks for having me.
Okay, one sec.